Alrighty, peeps. We are back. It is round 5 of the 2022 sorry, I'm still last year. 2023.1 season. We are back in the Porsche Cup series. We're at Watkins, Glen tonight. I will be your commentator. It's me, Sas van the Westhuizen. Hopefully you're ready to see my face. I've got my coffee ready. And yeah, just really excited to see tonight's race. I know that my Grumpy Monkey team have been making some noises about the new update, so I think this is also the first moment where we're going to be able to start testing and, well, not testing, seeing how the new physics, the 1.9 physics update for ACC has gone over. Qualifying has just started, so for once I've managed to time the start of my stream pretty well. Track is going to be rubbering in as we go. It's going to be a 15-minute session. So lots of action to be had. Track evolution might not be that big of a deal tonight, but this is Watkins Glen. Relatively tight track with not a lot of margin for error. You have to really be on it with what you're doing. Just to take us through a little bit of what we're in for tonight. A little bit of race info. As I mentioned already, we're on Watkins Glen. It's been great having this track in ACC recently. This is the boot layout, including that inner loop. So, really nice flowy set of corners. That inner loop nicely breaks up that back straight into the outer loop. And then the boot being a very nice technical section. Lots of camber on this track to use and abuse. But also easy to be caught out. In terms of weather for tonight, we have a pretty good weather forecast. 10 degrees average ambient temperature, so it is quite a cool day in America. Partly cloudy with a chance of showers. I'm not seeing many clouds on in the background there, but I'm not going to let it worry me too much right now. I think when we were running some simulations or using a tool to run some simulations, we found less than around about a 4 or 5% chance of having a mixed session and less than 1% having a full wet session. So drivers might be caught out. I'm not doing a Ray dance tonight. That is not my intention. I'm just mentioning, like, there is the ever slightest possibility that we can bump to grid and sit with some rainy weather. So we'll have to see how the drivers will deal with that. Right, so since we were lost at Hungaroring, I'm just gonna switch back to our... Well, no, let me just do this quickly. If you are still keen on racing with us, you can head on over to www.simracesa.co.za. You can find the link to our Discord server there. The details for signing up is also included on our Discord server. So there's round 5. There's still 2 more rounds left. I am suddenly at a loss for which round is coming up. Let me just double check that quickly. Yeah, I think we've got 2 rounds of each series left still. Yes, 2 rounds of each series is still on the cards. So there's loads more racing to be had before we close out the season. And as always, I would like to thank each and every driver for entering. It's great having some action to watch on track. But more importantly, these drivers also kind of came and opened their hearts. We, as SimRace South Africa, we try and support local charities. Our current charity that we're supporting is called Starting Chance. They're working with underprivileged kids. Dare I say in the Cape Town area, but I might be mistaken now. It's been a little while since I've read that. To date for this season, we've managed to bring in just over 11,000 Rand for the organization. And keep in mind, this isn't a mandatory donation. This is a donation that the drivers have made out of the generosity of their own hearts. Right, enough of me rambling. I'm going to quickly get our broadcasting view up. Ooh, I need to go change something very quickly. There we go. Right, so we have some times on the board. Charles Wilkin on provisional pole, with Nick Hodgson lining up next to him, or potentially lining up next to him, followed by Johan van der Merwe, Hardis Boyce, and Mark Henneberg. Before I continue, let me just say hello to everybody in chat there. Turkey Swanepoel, seeing you. You were a little sad that you can't be racing. I hear you, man. I see that you will be back. Excited to have you back. Josh Herbst, if I remember correctly, there was a Herbst driver on the grid, so not sure if he's here to support, but welcome. Paul Fenter is always there, here to support his LNR drivers, shouting for berries and Strijdom. And I see Fenrir TTV, not sure who that is. Arvia, also wishing good luck there to the LNR boys. Stephen Karnik, Andre Alfonso Diaz, welcome. Great to have you here. Excited to see what is coming up. First off, I do need to just maybe check if anybody can let me know whether the car sound volume is too loud or too soft. I might have to bump it up a little bit. But for now, it's not draining it's not droning too loudly in my ears. Right, I'm gonna start from the back and work my way forward. Chris Bernardi, currently 5 seconds adrift of the leader. He is currently a second up on his delta, so it's quite a bit of a gap that he'll have to come and close. Sean Bingham also in the chat there, rooting for Hardis. Sean, it's been a while since I've seen you on track, it feels like. No, I might be wrong. Yeah, so Chris Bernardi, 1 second up in his delta. That's, he's right behind Francia Bernardi. Well, that will put him right behind Francia Bernardi, so not quite enough to make up. Just hopping to Gideon Bernardi, he is currently a second up on his delta. He's almost finished with his lap. If he can close this out, that will leave him with a good amount of position bumps. He'll bump up into P17. Then hopping further forward, Mr. James Leach. Currently 6/10 up on his delta. He's coming to cross the finish line in just a bit. He crosses and he bumps up into P16. Right, further up the field. Lots of green. The first one I'm spotting is Roxanne Bartle. That is quite a striking livery, if I dare say so. I know this is in-game, but from a color palette point of view, I really like that. I might have to go and play around with something sometime soon. Roxanne, having shown relatively consistently that she can perform quite well, still catching here and getting caught out here and there with small mistakes, but she's come to be quite the force to be reckoned with, if you ask me. Interestingly, I do see Christy Simon currently in P9. I know that we were looking around and Nick said he was kind of struggling to go faster than Christy. But I suppose that was just a lack of practice. Everybody has been at the Grumpy Monkey side has been a little bit, like, not absent, but time has not been kind. Roxanne currently 4/10 up on her delta, so that should put her up into the top 10 if things go well. I'm just going to close out the lap with her before I then... So, yeah, she jumps up into P7. Going to hop to Johan van der Merwe. He is also well up on his delta. Rounding the last corner in just a bit. I really, really like that livery, and I'm starting to wonder if that's an in-game livery. Johan van der Merwe jumps up into P3, so definitely some track evolution at play here, it seems. Now, as I say that, I see Christy Simon has bumped ahead of Nick Hodgson, so the inter-team battles there are also alive and well. Right. Just No, that's not ideal. Mark Henneberry, that's a disconnected car that's flying like that. Hopefully he can get back soon. Just hopping back to Bjorn Buchner. He was 5/10. This is the commentator's curse. As soon as you switch the camera to someone, they make a mistake. He threw away 5/10 there. I am very, very sorry, Bjorn. But I'm also sure that you're more than willing to take some of that accountability or some of that responsibility for the slight loss in pace. Right, hopefully you can string together a nice next lap. Hopping to Hardis Boyse now. Ooh, Hardis really manhandling the car out of the carousel there. Ooh, drifting like that is losing a little bit of time. Hardis seems to be under a bit of pressure to improve his pace right now. He's been making his way towards the sharper end of the field, so he might be a little bit out of place looking at the grid right now. Okay. Mr. Nick Hodgson, he's 3/10 up on his Delta. Not quite enough to get him to the front row of the grid again, but it will be good enough to get him into P3, it seems. So, that said, Johan van der Merwe is also improving his lap at the moment, although he is very, very early in his lap right now. Nick bumps into P4 rather instead, 0.005 of a second adrift of Johan van der Merwe. So really, really, really tight there. I'm sure he's going to be like just kicking himself a little bit for not being able to maintain that delta the entire time. Right, hopping over to Ronald Childs. As I do that, he bumps into someone. I hope that they were not on a hot lap, because that hot lap has now most definitely been ruined. Further back, Etienne Mouton. Again, I am a sucker for this ship racing livery. Again, kudos to the team at LT Racing. Etienne Mouton working his way around the track. He is 2.6 seconds off the leader, but densely packed around him. So he is desperately trying to improve. Currently 2/10 up on his Delta. I think when I switched to him it was around 3, but he's lost a bunch of time here at the toe of the boot. And that's unfortunately not going to be enough to push him further forward. Just to show the LNR, the Blairy Blexham's team in their orange livery. Sean Strydom has been one of the consistent performers here. Let me maybe not tell lies. I'm going to quickly go to our standings. Just to quickly have a look at what the current championship standings are for the simCup series. Yes, Sean Strydom currently in the lead with 400 points, followed by Charles Wilkin with 388. Keep in mind, Sean has taken each of the wins. Yes, I am remembering correctly. Sean has taken every single win of this season. Charles Wilkin has raced in all 4 races. I suspect there might be one of the races he's looking at taking a drop round instead. But in P3, Jeremy de Villiers with 356 points. So I think from a top 2 standings point of view, they've been consistently up there. It's going to be slightly tougher for them, for others to come and catch them up. That said, with the drop rounds, it always makes it quite difficult for me to figure out what's going on. Seeing Stephen Koenig mentioned there, it's good to see a grid full of cars in this, full of a full grid with this car. Yes, cup cars don't seem to be that popular, but have you driven this Porsche? It is such a joy to drive, and if you can get things right, oh man, that is just pure enjoyment. Right, John Stradom comes and closes out the session. My sound in my headphones just dropped out for a moment. He closes out the session. Let's see if I can go find a different driver. Not finding anybody on a good hot lap outside of Bjorn Buchner. He's got 2/10, but I think he's going to need closer to 4/10 if he actually wants to improve. Yeah, I was raving about this car. I took it out for a spin tonight. Tonight was the first time I've driven on the new physics. I just was curious. I wanted to see what it was about. Interesting to see the new physics, as well as the impact on force feedback. But I must say, it took me a few laps, but once I hooked it up, oh, such a good car to drive, and it will teach you so much. Ooh, and Bjorn Buchner dives into the pits, and he's too fast, and he gets teleported. Right, last person out, James Leach. Ooh, slams into the barrier. Right, I'm going to go for a very quick ad break. We'll be back around about in a while as they... And what was I saying? I am sorry. Let's do a quick short intro before... And I will be back right now. I have this eerie feeling the rain is because of me. Well, we bumped to grid. Very, very light rain. The track is wet though, so... Oh, what do you do? Gut is telling me slap on wet, drive it until it dries out, because 10 minutes is going to be quite a while, and you're just going to be hurting your racing slicks by using something else. Oh man, what choices. Luckily we've managed to bring back a little bit of extra time for people to get their setups loaded and ready to go. But yeah, commentator's curse has struck, and it has struck hard. My apologies to all the drivers. I do think this will make for an interesting race, considering that all strategy has now pretty much flown out of the window. Right. As we see Sean Stradom pulling away, I'm just going to switch to Helicam. Oh, man. So, top three, Sean Stradom, Charles Wilkin, Ryan Barrington-Smith, and then followed by Nick Hodgson, Johan van der Merwe, Christy Simon, Jeremy de Villiers, Sean Loretta, Roxanne Bartle, and Gregory Hofart to round out the top 10. Stephen, I almost want to say, if you're keen on having a chat with me, you're more... Oh no, you can't join this practice server now, unfortunately. Otherwise I would have loved to have some company in the booth tonight, because I think this is gonna be a race. But my pleasure, Stephen. I felt it really important to have commentary for this series, that's why I made the choice to rather commentate instead of race, as much as I love these cars. Right, so the big question is, who dared to do this? Who dared to go out on slicks? Who went out on wets? In my mind, if the track was damp, dry tires might have been an option. But right now, I'm doing a lot there to try and bring some heat into the brakes. But considering that it is pretty much wet right now, your dry tires just aren't going to survive the stint. So you're already making peace with the fact that you are taking a pit stop for tires, and you're not going to be saving as much time by pitting for wets. By only pitting for fuel, you're going to lose all of that because your tires would have been destroyed by that point. There's a lot that can happen here. I think once we get going, that will be the best moment to see what exactly is up, who did what and where. Right now, there's nothing that I can really say other than good luck to all the drivers, and may they give us a spectacular show. Get my commentary thing up again. Everybody's starting to line up double file. Just mentioning your comment there about having driven this car in an iRacing and not an ACC. I think either way, it's a car that teaches you a lot of really, really good, solid discipline. Throttle discipline specifically, because if you just hammer on that throttle, you are going to spin. There is no ABS to rely on, and it is just such a good car to get to grips with some proper driving tech. Right, I'm switching to Sean Strydom. Actually gonna, and away they go. Green flag is out. Cars in the background going 2 or 3 side by side. Hopefully everybody can keep it clean. Just hopping back to the mid pack here. Looks like everybody made it fine through turn 1. In the back of the pack here, a big bunch. Hopefully, these S bands can be quite tricky. Right, I'm gonna just do this. So bear with me. I might need to just bring some. Hello, Mr. Stephen Kernick.
Hello. Glad to be on air and to go and actually see some of the fantastic racing with the Porsche.
I'm sure you're coming through on the. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You were on stream there, but my headphones weren't configured correctly. Right, loads of action happening here. Thanks for joining. I'll try and get you a view in just a moment.
That's absolutely amazing. But off to a start to the race, everyone keeping it reasonably clean with a greasy circuit. And as you were mentioning, the Cup car, a very unique vehicle to teach the fundamentals, and also for anyone that's a master of some, they're going to have to really work hard with these cars, and the change of conditions is really going to put a spanner in the works for majority of anyone that's got dry racing plans.
Definitely. I see one of the closest battles on track right now. Johan van der Merwe and Sean Loureiro for P4 and 5. Sorry, my apologies. No, that's Johan and Sean. The gap was smaller. Something was up with one of the liveries right now. And I do see we've moved over into a damp track almost immediately. That's one thing that I found with ACC rain. Very light rain. Ooh, Johan, big moment there coming out of turn 1. And Charles Wilkin has also spun and turned around. Let me just catch that very quickly. Ooh, he had a very, very big moment coming out of turn 1. Smashed into the barriers, turned around. He's going to have to stand and wait. Ooh.
Makes you wonder how much damage has been done to that car, and now Charles got to try and either limp it back, but
he ended up jumping back to pits. I think people were just too unsighted when they came around turn 1 and found a car facing backwards.
Watkins, Glen, known as going bowling, is definitely one of the circuits that can catch you out. So with the change of camber and the undulations, if you're not ready for any car that's spun around, you're going to land up in a world of hurt. And with these cars, you have to be on point every single time. You can't just lift off, otherwise you're going to land up going into your competitors, but also you can unsettle the car as much as you try and get it back.
Right, so I've given you a video feed. I can't quite give you the sound feed because I haven't figured out how to do that with OBS and Discord just yet.
That's perfect.
But you can at least see that 4 or 5 seconds that is like that I'm ahead of the YouTube stream. At the top end here, Sean and Ryan Barrington-Smith really dicing one another. Ryan looks to be the slightly faster one at the moment. I think his last lap was around about 4 seconds quicker than Sean, so maybe Sean had to lift off there. I didn't quite see how close he was to Charles when Charles spun. The tires now is now gonna be at play here. As we go from this damp track, eventually it will go greasy and dry. Rain has officially stopped, so we will be seeing drivers starting to think about what to do with their pit stops. Keeping in mind, there is a mandatory pit window starting at the 10-minute mark and stopping at the 50-minute mark. So it's a 40-minute pit window. I am pretty sure the drivers will be able to get to the 10-minute mark on these tires. It's actually one of my small gripes with this pit window. I feel it should have been slightly smaller for mixed conditions to be a little bit more interesting, because then drivers are forced to think: do they pit early, or do they take an extra pit stop, or do they just use their driving ability to extend a stint on tires that aren't quite optimal for the situation?
I'll just take a look on screen. Ryan Barrington-Smith is actually going out off the dry line just to try and cool the tires down, as we're starting to see more of a dry line forming up. And Sean Stradham, as he's sliding the car around, I think there's going to be a heat problem, and there's going to have to be a communication amongst the team just to try and work out when are you going to pit. Are you going to try and do an overlap over one another to try and pull yourselves forward to get away from the likes of Van Merwe and Hodgkin, who's really chasing right behind? But
as you're saying that, Sean is also hunting for the wet patches.
So that tells you a story of what those tires are starting to do, starting to balloon up, starting to lose grip. And in these cars, you need every little bit of grip that helps. And now it's all about trying to push your teammates and focus on what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, because either way, the guys need to start opening up a gap of at least 20 seconds if they want to try and maintain their position over a long duration of this race.
Yeah. Quickly hopping back to Donovan de Noon, who's closely followed by Nick Hodgson, keeping a very close eye on the oh, sorry, I see Ryan just posted the fastest lap. Where are the overtaking opportunities on this track again?
So best overtaking opportunity would actually go, ironically, into the bus stop, which is coming up now. It's heading past turn 4. Go line yourself on the inside, or if you go out far wide, you can get a slingshot out of the bus stop and get past your competitors. But you've got to be so careful, because remember, these conditions can be rather tricky. You can land up going onto the marbles, and as you can see, we got Barrington-Smith, who's actually going a little bit more defensive, trying to hold back a couple of guys that just came out of the pits, allowing Sean Stradham to get a little bit more room to pull away, which tells me they might do a bit of a switch there, allow Sean to pull in and Barrington to take the lead.
I will say, though, that the person behind Ryan is Martin Groenewald. He's actually a back marker too. So he qualified, I think, somewhere in the top 20, not quite in the same race necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily a move to defend. Maybe it was just the going around the outside through the S's put Ryan behind by quite a bit, and been closing that gap ever since.
Very true.
Hopping back to P5, Jeremy de Villiers, followed by Byron Thompson, followed by Johan van der Merwe followed by Roxanne Bartel. A little bit of a train forming here. Roxanne not quite at the back of this train. I mentioned Jeremy currently P3 in the championship. Not sure if I think those standings don't take drop rounds into account just yet. So there might be drivers who have already decided to take their drop round that could contest for a position ahead of Jeremy. But Jeremy doing well to hold off Byron Thompson here right now. It does look like he's driving, looking in the rearview mirror a little bit too much though.
He's taking a very tight line through some of the corners and then just exposing himself to Thompson, who's constantly laying on the pressure. Now, the question is, would you rather be the car attacking in these conditions and really force a mistake like that? De Villiers going and losing the rear, and unfortunately, big impact. Now has to go and drive, and I bet you he's got a bit of a bend steering at the moment, now trying to figure out what can he do to keep going as they make their way through, but just dropping down the order, and that's definitely not helping his case right now.
Oh, no, definitely. To answer your question, I tend to prefer to be the attacking driver. I can lay down pressure much better than I can absorb it.
One of those moments you just want to fold your mirrors and ensure that you're not going to get caught out. But take a look at Nick Hodgkin up into 7th place, now just trying to keep the momentum and scoring some great pace, just working with that Grumpy Monkey Porsche. A little bit of sideways action, got to be so careful with it. I think the rear tire is starting to take a fair amount of abuse at the moment, and everyone's starting to wonder, when is that pit window going to be just right to go and move yourself forward, and how late are you willing to risk it to get to the end?
From what I remember though, and I think this might have been a consideration for the drivers when they started or lined up. Ooh, Nick getting very, very out of shape there. The tires are clearly not gripping up as much as they used to be. But just thinking from a strategy, what I would have done, knowing that the track was going to dry up, knowing that the tires were going to get warm, I would have under pressured my tires to buy myself a little bit of extra headroom, and hopefully a bit of extra grip with these wets to get well into the pit window. And as I say that, pit window opens, so cars are free to pit right now, although I do think it is still too early for slicks. Wait for that greasy track, and then take the racing slicks. Don't pit for slicks while it's still damp if you can help it.
Well, I have to agree with you there. With the recent update that's gone on with ACC at the moment, they've allowed a bit more leniency in the tire temperatures and in the pressure window. So going with a little bit of an underinflated tire does allow you to get a little bit more life out of it in the conditions. But for how long, considering the lap times that the guys are pulling at the moment, Sean Stratham, who's down in second, chasing down his teammates, who got all out of shape. Barrington Smith trying to get himself all together, trying to go a little bit defensive, middle of the circuit, hard onto the brakes, and just keep Stratham at bay. These two are not going and giving each other an easy time. If there was any team orders, I think it's going back to the old Nico Rosberg and Hamilton days of Formula One.
It's hammer and tongs for them both. It does mean that Sean lost P1 now. He must have made a little mistake there. Didn't quite manage to absorb the pressure that Ryan was laying down. But he is right back at it, trying to pressure Ryan now. And I'm also certain that we're going to start seeing lap times drop quite a bit. I see Nick Hodgson has grabbed the fastest lap time right now. And I'm fully expecting these two to be grabbing that away from him as they cross the finish line right about now. Interestingly not. Okay. Hopping back to P9, Donovan Deneuve with Jeremy De Villiers less than a second behind him. Donovan hunting for those wet patches, trying to keep the tires cool. Loads of drivers in the pits. Sean Loureiro, Byron Thompson, Greg Hofart, Franco Bernardi, Flip Van Sale, and that's the lot. Terence Ferreira also. Oh no, Terence looks like he had a disconnect.
But you think of it now, Charles Walken, who started right up at the front, now lying in 20th place, about 28 seconds behind Bernardi, is going to be thinking of how can he move forward. And this is where pit stop strategies come into play. When are you going to be able to do it? How can you get the jump? And how late are you willing to risk it? As Donovan going and really keeping himself in check, having to just back a little bit off the Porsche, and allows De Villiers to get a little bit closer each and every time.
I am slightly worried about Donovan sliding his car so much. If you look at the angle that he is, at his slip angle all throughout, he is almost drifting that car, and those tires might not like that. And I do see the track has gone over into greasy state, so definitely these wet tires are going to start heating up more and more. They're going to be offering less and less grip. The key is just making that call. When exactly do you go and pit for dries?
Well, if we're going to go and have a bit of fun here, let's do a proper commentator's one of, I think they're going to leave it out for another 20 minutes or so, just so it gets out just beyond that greasy state, and then going for the box. I don't think going in right now is going to be the best idea. I think rather leave it for another 10-20 minutes, just so it gets a little bit more of a drier line, that when you come out you're not going to be battling too much, and you can get enough heat build up into those tires and focus on nailing the lap times.
Yeah, I think 20 minutes is maybe a little too much. Maybe closer to 10 minutes is going to be the sweet spot. Bringing this into something closer of a like 50-50 strat. It does mean, from a fuel perspective, if you're using tools that calculate fuel burn, you might be caught out if you're not careful. Because you tend to burn less fuel in the wet conditions, and as you start ramping up, if you don't allow that calculation to settle back into a sensible value, you might end up underfueling the car and having to do a bit of fuel saving to get to the end.
With these cars, there's no engine map. So your engine map is your right foot. How much lead have you got in your boot at the moment?
Personally,
and that's what makes it challenging.
Personally, I believe fuel saving with the pedal is one of the best approaches, because it is a really, really tough skill to develop. And honestly, fuel maps can only get you so far.
Oh, that's it. And with these cars, it's all about pushing the boundaries and how much are you willing to put on the line to get going. Interesting enough, a couple of the guys actually getting pit stops done and dusted and going to be focusing on the charge, as we take a look at Maton from LT Racing, going and keeping Leach at bay, and Leach needing to go and pull in the pits, but down in 15th place, may get the jump to 14th if he can close down the gap. But it's all very, very tricky. You can see obviously a little bit of dry tires is on, because he's really hunting down the dry patches and just trying to keep that car in check. Every so often when he goes offline, the Porsche just wants to skate underneath, and the guy's having to really correct these cars. The problem is they're still trying to build a bit of heat into these tires, trying to build a heat into the brakes and get them back up to an optimal temperature, because every time you stop in the pits, it's just going downhill from there.
Maton making the mistake there in the braking zone, just drifting onto the wet patch and not able to slow the car down enough, and that's allowed James Leach. Who's that James Leach?
I don't think that's
no,
James
that is
Leach,
not.
no.
That was someone lapping him. Maybe. Okay.
James Leach trying to close down. There he is in shot, coming really close,
Okay.
starting to feel that it's getting a bit more of a chase, and you can be sure he's getting informed by either crew chief or by his pit manager, and Mouton goes and loses it.
Keep it together, not into the barrier. Very, very lucky and good save there. Now just to rejoin safely.
Problem is, it is a blind corner, so you're going to be guessing. You're going to have to watch your relative like a hawk, and you can see just trying to creep to get a little bit of a view, get the car turned around.
Doing very well there, staying off of the racing line. Oh, that was unfortunate, Mr. Mouton, but hopefully you can settle down. Tires might be a little hot right now. Calm the nerves, take it easy, get those tires back into a comfortable position, and keep on trucking. So that does give James Leach P15 now, and he is going to be on the hunt for P14 with Martin Groenewald up ahead. Martin was one of the cars that pitted before the pit window started, so he is I wonder if he took the gamble for slicks and ended up deciding that was not the right choice, pitting for wets instead. But it has cost him dearly now.
Since he just turned a race that's meant to be a one-stop into a two-stop, you have to try and open up the gap. I don't think Groenewold is going to be able to maintain the gap if Leach carries on with the pace. As we jump to Sean Stradham, he's in 9th place, so first in a net first place at the moment, making his way through, and just trying to catch up to Leach up ahead in 8th place. But I've got to say, absolutely phenomenal stuff from these drivers, getting to grips with the car. But turn 1 seems to be the Achilles heel at the moment, and rightfully so. As you head it down into turn 1, the change of camber, how the corner goes, it makes it incredibly difficult. If you go on board, you would see it.
I think the curbs are just that slippery as well. In all fairness,
touch the curbs.
It is, yeah. You have to be very, very wary of touching those curbs. Keep in mind though, Sean Stradham went to pit. Ryan Barrington-Smith is still out there.
That goes and talks about how they've planned their pit stops, but now will Ryan Barrington-Smith be able to maintain that position? Can he stretch open a gap, or will his teammate go and take that away from him? So he has to be so careful of what he does now. He's only got a 10-second gap to Van der Merwe lying in 2nd place, which may seem like a lot for some, but in these conditions, it can get taken away very, very quickly, as we saw early on in the race. A couple of guys getting a little bit over enthusiastic on the throttle, and unfortunately they can drop down 3, 4, 5, even 6 positions in a flash.
I'm focusing him right now because I'm curious to see when he's going to pit. He decides to stay out, so his last lap, well, the one that he just completed, a 154.4, and I'll keep my eye out for when Sean Stradham crosses the finish line. His current last lap is a 242, meaning that's his pit lap.
Let's also take a look at Charles Wilkin down in 19th place, actually getting the fastest lap of the race. So slowly trying to claw his way back, and also focus on trying to get those points back that is duly needed for the championship. Charles Wilkin done incredibly well in the virtual hill climb, and now jumping into the Porsche with not too much practice compared to others. He had to try and balance a juggling act between 2 different sims, so he's really on a hard charge to get himself back to the top.
I mean, it is. Ooh, that looks more like the type of driving that Charles is used to. Isn't he an ex-rally driver?
Charles Wilkin has done rallying, he's done circuits, he's got multiple national titles behind him. A very, very experienced driver, hoping to just maintain a huge level in sim racing. He's come in and won championships. He's really set a very high bar, which it seems like the rest of the field is also going and taking the fight to Mr. Wilkin. So we'll have to see how it all works out for Charles Wilkin and where he's going to end, because at this point he's on a redemption drive just to try and save a bit of points for the championship.
I do think he is 2 laps behind Ronald Childs, if I'm reading this interval correctly. So he's going to have to do a lot of driving if he wants to claw that back. I do want to jump back to Sean Stradham though. His last lap, a 152.1. Ryan Barrington-Smith crosses the finish line now with a 150. Oh no, he's in pit. So Ryan Barrington-Smith's last lap was a 154.4, 2 seconds slower than Sean. And I think that is the 2 seconds that Sean was needing to get past Ryan with the pit stops. He's kind of gotten luck of the draw now by pitting early. Well, not luck of the draw, that was the right strategy call by pitting slightly earlier. And that's why I said, I think the magic moment is when the track goes greasy to pit for slicks. Because you need to be ready, you need to have your tires warmed up and ready to start setting faster laps. The longer you extend on the wets, the longer you delay that warm-up period. Because these tires don't have blankets on them. You actually get an ice-cold set out of a set of tires when you go and pit for a new set.
9 times out of 10, they left it in the freezer before they put it in the car when you go grab hold of it.
Right, Sean bumps into P6 with fastest lap of the race thus far.
did look like Ryan Barrington-Smith just exiting pit lane
Right
as
now.
well. So he's out. Sean Strader managed to get a little bit ahead and now is on the charge. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle of the teammates soon, but we cannot count out Van der Merwe, De Villiers, and Leach up in first, second, and third. If they can stretch open the gap a little bit, they also have a chance to try and get into the fight as well. Sneyman pulling into the pit, so he's going to get sorted out. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers needing to go into the pits to get themselves sorted out. I think Henberry, as you said earlier, has disconnected looking at that gap time.
Yeah.
It's rather impressive. But a couple of drivers still needing to pit. The pit window starting to close, and they're probably still on rain tires. That's also starting to come into effect. What is it doing to their lap times?
That's what I'm that's what I'm actually looking at. So just jumping ahead, Johan van der Merwe's last lap time a 1:53.0. Jeremy De Villiers last lap time a 1:53.7. I'll quickly wait for him to cross the finish line to see what this one ends up being. 1:53.3. Renier Leach in P3 also going to be finishing. Ooh, that car looks a little bit second-hand at the front.
I think he went and kissed the wall ever so slightly. And
It might also have been contact with a car that was stationary after spinning at turn 1. Right, so Renier Leach, last lap time 1:56.7. Definitely not fast enough to be capitalizing or trying to even make a move on Sean Stradom and Ryan Barrington-Smith.
a lot of it's coming down to tires and also the little bit of aero damage. Thing with Watkins, Glen, it's a very fast circuit. It requires a bit of low drag to try and pull yourself around, and with these cars, any sort of drag will be felt. And once he gets into the pits, it's going to do slight repair work to it, but that's going to extend his pit box time and cause him to fall down the field. So he's going to keep that in mind as he's going and start weighing up the pros and cons of staying out this long.
Yeah, I'm looking at Hardus Buesa right now. He is around about he's about 5/10 slower than Sean Stradom. But Sean Loureiro in P6 ahead is actually a 10th or 2 quicker than Sean Stradom. So I am fully expecting Sean to be rocking up to the rear of Ryan Barrington-Smith soon if Ryan doesn't pull finger and like light up his tires so that he can get going.
Starting to feel how the race goes, and this is what also makes it challenging with the series, is you've got a duration that it comes down to driver endurance, because these cars are very, very physical. As you said, they've got no ABS, they've got no traction control. You're hanging on for dear life. You're trying to catch every slide. You're focusing on every little movement, and it's starting to wear down. A lot of these drivers have been awake the entire day, and that's also coming into play because it's just fatigue from the day, and now the car is just being right on top of it as well. So everyone needing to try and figure out how they can keep momentum going for the last 34 minutes of the race. And you can be sure a couple of drivers are waiting for the checkered flag to come out, and as we see Mouton, he goes out very, very wide and losing out a huge amount of time. That's allowed Thompson to go and close down on him. He's going to utilize the toe and try to get him pulled along, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Do you stay so close? Because the aero wash becomes a little bit of a handful. Manages to get by just fine and gets back onto the throttle, slide out, not going as far as the rest though. You see a lot of people utilizing the outside curb, going and letting the car slide itself out, but it's keeping a very, very tight line, which
looks like tight. Ooh. Sorry. That looks very, very close for comfort.
Well, that's using all the road and takes away everything I said. Just one corner later.
Oh man, Byron, you're gonna give me a heart attack here. Right, Bjorn
I
Buchner.
think he felt it.
He's got someone right on the back of him, Martin Groenewald. Oh, why is ACC's timing tower so weird sometimes? That's not a... Oh, he's on the rear of Christy Simon. Right, I read this incorrectly. So Bjorn was probably overtaken by Christy. Bjorn's car also looking slightly second-hand. I do remember him qualifying towards the latter half of the field. So Christy might have had a little bit of pace on him. I know with race start madness, Christy is one of those drivers who's historically hasn't done too great. I know I'm also very guilty of it the other day with the GT3 race in Imola. It is tough when the track is so narrow and you have to make a good start and not lose too many battles. He is making his way back now.
Let's get this one right. You like me. We like slowing stuff down and looking at the surroundings and appreciating all the surroundings that are there. But all these drivers having to work hard. I mean, if you think about it, this 992 Porsche Cup car has got 375 kilowatts of power that they're trying to utilize and control with their right foot on a very greasy circuit. You can see it has gotten a bit better. The conditions have gotten better, but it's still a little bit cold out there for the guys having to try and keep it all in check. As we see one of the LNR cars coming hot onto the brakes, sliding out a little bit.
Trying to see what happened because Ryan lost quite a bit of time to Sean Strydom for whatever reason.
Through turn 3, turn 2,
might have missed it.
Don't see any damage, but one makes you wonder, did he have to come off the gas a little bit? And it starts coming into what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is how much fuel have they been utilizing?
Yeah.
Have they now gone and underestimated what they've got? And with the sudden change, are you starting to fuel save towards the end? These are all the little factors that are going to start creeping up, and as the drivers see the pit window starting to close a little bit by 20 minutes, you start having to do a little bit of math while driving, which is no easy feat for any of these drivers to figure out. Okay, I'm using 1.3 liters per lap. This is my lap time. How much am I going to have left in the car? How much time do I have to need to get away from everyone? So Ryan Barrington-Smith has definitely dropped off the pace. Looking at it, 148.9
though, so he is trying his best to close the gap. For context, Sean Stradom's last lap was a 49.7. Ryan is almost a second quicker with a 48.9. We're getting very, very close to optimal racetrack. Ooh! Renier Leach just kissing the barrier there. Is him, yes. Kissing the barrier up, coming up the Essies.
There's a bit of damage to the car. You can see the nose bouncing ever so slightly, and I think that's starting to affect the front aero of the car. And he's getting a bit of washout from the front every time he turns in. It looks like corner entry oversteer with corner exit oversteer as well as soon as he gets back onto the power. So it's just not biting the way he wants it to at the moment. But he's still on those wet tires. And this is where it starts getting a little bit risky. And I think he's going to have to box. You've hit the point now where you ran the life of him. Tires have burnt up, and you're going to just have to get it in, get it sorted out, and start trying to bring those lap times back down.
No, I'm taking into consideration the fact that Renier hasn't boxed yet. It's my best guess is what tire he's on. I actually wonder if I can quickly do this. No, I thought as much. Sorry, I want to get back to the broadcasting view. I was hoping that we can see what tire set he selected. But considering that I don't remember Renier Leach being very, very slow in the wet, I can't imagine that he is actually on a dry set of tires. Johan van der Merwe has also finally pitted. He's exited the pits in P6. Lost a lot of time, in my opinion. His last lap, 2:06.8, so not the fastest lap. I'm assuming that's his pit lap. We'll have to wait and see what he can claw back right now. He is looking pretty planted in turn 1. He is arriving on the back of some back markers, and that's James Leach. Is he having a battle with... That's not Etienne Mouton next to him.
It's
No.
one of the Schick cars that's definitely giving a bit of a challenge, and they're kind of arriving on the scene.
It's
No,
Ronald
it's not one
Childs.
of that's not one of the Schick cars, but just arriving on the scene and having to really keep it all together. Sneaks across the front of James Leach. James Leach goes off into the dirt. I think a little bit of error wash coming into play, and well, I've just got to point out James Leach has got a car that's very reminiscent to the 992 Porsche that we have here in SA that actually races. So it's good to see similar color scheme lurking around. I won't lie.
Yeah. So the car that was, I think this was Ronald Childs just unlapping himself from James Leach. But he now has Johan van der Merwe all over the back of him. And keeping in mind, our rules state, drive a predictable racing line, don't defend the corner. I am curious what is Ronald's thought process right now. At some point you have to, as a back marker, at some point you realize like you're just losing time trying to stay ahead. Ooh, that was very far off.
A little bit too close to the wall for comfort, but at the moment he's just impacting Van der Merwe's race as Van der Merwe's trying his hardest to get by, gets into the toe, pulls himself along, but just not confident enough on the brakes to get past. And it's starting to impact his race ever so slightly as just constantly searching, and that's allowing Watkins to get a little bit closer. Watkins down 6 seconds behind him, so frustration must be starting to mount on the likes of Van der Merwe as he
Nick
really
is about
trying to push a mistake.
1.5 seconds quicker than Johan at the moment. So Johan is going to be really eager to get this overtake done. He does finally get it done. I'm not sure if that's a thank you flash or a frustrated flash of the lights.
I'm gonna put it down to thank you for the toe, and we'll have a nice chat afterwards over a glass of Coke. Now I'm gonna put it down to that, but just taking a look, Sean Herrero right up against Richard Leach and Renault Leach. I do apologize.
Does get the overtake done though.
Leach still on those wet tires at the moment and still hurting with the damage. The bounce constantly going on, and is in a fight of note.
I almost want to say, if any of the Leach teammates aren't racing but is watching, go shout at this man, tell him to pit. I think he's just losing tons and tons of time.
One of these ones you want to grab a megaphone and shout off the side of the pit wall and just tell him, please.
That said, in P1, Jeremy... Ooh, that car does not look great. But in P1, Jeremy de Villiers also hasn't pitted yet. He is, let's say, 2 seconds off the pace, comparing him to Sean and Ryan behind him. I'm starting to wonder if if Renier and Jeremy de Villiers didn't go out with dry tires. And they're now feeling like they're fast, but not realizing how slow they actually are. At this point, 24 minutes left. This is 1 minute 50. I'm gonna have to do some math quickly.
So if we put it to a theory, put on my tinfoil hat, my long tinfoil hat. If they've gone out on dry tires into the wet to try and push their way through, as we spoke about possibly doing, do you think the sliding around and the slight knocks have just impacted the overall grip? Now they're getting to the end of the race. The tires are more worn out than what they wanted to.
That's exactly what
and they've run to the end of life.
I don't think it's necessarily run to end of life. These tires have grained beyond a point where they're still, where they're still usable. Historically in the Cup series, drivers had run long stints, done a splash and dash, and gotten out. You save, by not taking tires, you save around about 25 seconds. I just did the math. There's around about 13, 14 laps left. If you're losing 2 seconds a lap, that's 28 seconds. That's a pit stop. Take the tires.
Just try and get it sorted. But remember, if they take the pit stop, even for a refuel, there is going to be a fix on the car. How much damage you got, whether it's 5 seconds,
If
whether
you
it's
opt
2
for the
seconds,
fix.
that's it. But realize of not taking the fix, gonna start laying in some damage into your front tires and possibly cost you going into the wall.
But
Are you
even
willing
then,
to take the risk?
tires alone, pace-wise compared to the leader, is costing Jeremy 2 seconds. And I don't think those 2 seconds are worth it, considering that he could have gone and taken new slicks.
That's it, and he's dropping way down. Sean Stratham starting to close down, and teammate also Ryan Barrington-Smith starting to bed into it as well. So De Villiers is just on a
Renier Leach
bit
is
of
in
a
the
hurting
pits.
streak.
Finally.
Porsche
And
now getting itself sorted.
this looks
and,
like a tire stop, considering how long he's been stationary.
This is the worst of it for any driver, and I mean, you know it all too well. You sit there in the box, you waiting to go. You can just hear your competitors come past you one by one. Those engines howling as they make their way into turn 1, and it's just never a pleasant feeling because you're constantly wanting to just go. And one thing I just want to point out, the brake moderation that's going as they're trying to get these cars in check, utilizing the brakes to try and just get a little bit more rotation, a bit of a trail braking as well, just to focus on keeping the balance of the car as they make their way through. Very difficult, and Watkins Glen not in circuit. It looks easy on paper, but when you're actually behind the wheel, very easy to miss your brake markers. It's very easy to just go and lose it or go a little bit too hot into it.
Just hop on board with Byron Thompson at the moment. He is within a second of Roxanne Bartle. And pace-wise, he is around about 5/10 quicker than Roxanne. So 20 minutes left. I think the delta on Watkins needs to be closer to 7/10 for you to make a successful overtake. So Byron's going to be laying down pressure hard.
This is the thing, you can keep close to your competitor, make them watch your mirrors, make them look left, make them look right, try and constantly take the focus off where they need to be. All you need is them to miss the brake marker by even 2 meters, and they will cost them dearly. So just constantly sit in the mirrors, wait for your opportunity, be patient, and slowly start going and reining in, because the mental fight that's happening at the moment is huge. Roxanne has to just try and fold those mirrors in, forget about what's around, hit the apexes, get the exits right, and get back onto the throttle, losing a bit of time through the bus stop. And that's where Thompson actually gained a little bit as he makes his way through. So it seems like Roxanne's battling a little bit, slight damage to the front of the car. You can see that bonnet a bit raised. And I think
Byron is
just
sliding a lot.
Every gain, there is a loss, and it's always a difficult one. From an outside perspective, you can tell them what to do, but as you know, once you're in the car, well, it's a totally different ball game.
Jeremy De Villiers in the pits, quickly checking if he's stationary for longer than 5 seconds.
And put out of the pit box, actually. If that...
Ooh, that was much too quick. Jeremy going for the splash and dash strategy here.
Alright, so this is going to be an interesting one. Deciding that there's still enough life in the tires. They're not acting like Rice Krispies going snap, crackle and pop just yet. And going to focus on the charge. Just going and focusing, being ahead of everyone, being ahead of all the traffic, and now needs to try and get himself all sorted. Positive about not changing tires. He's still got a fair amount of heat in those carcasses to go and keep yourself going. Problem is, you are risking it right towards the end, and your braking markers are going to become a little bit more difficult to reach, as you see some very close action right up against the back of De Villiers. De Villiers going defensive, doing everything he can to try and hold his ground. Watkins really focusing on the charge, trying to put pressure on that inside line, and it doesn't seem like De Villiers can just tuck up too close to the inside line. Those tires just not biting the way he wants, but opening up a small gap losing it under braking, trying to get himself back into the rhythm. This is a very, very difficult circuit in terms of you lose your rhythm, you're done and dusted. So at this moment, De Villiers is in a race for his life, and Watkins knows that he can do this.
Completely outbrakes himself.
We go that extra 2 meters. That extra 2 meters, and unfortunately, the harder you push the brake, the more that the tire is going to refuse to do what you want. That's the one thing about these cars that I reckon is absolutely phenomenal compared to the GT3s. And we spoke about it previously, is it teaches you how to really focus on the core fundamentals of what you need to do. Carry momentum, move yourself forward, and not land up with any problems.
Just saw that Johan van der Merwe made his way past Sean Norero. Oh man, I just didn't jump back far enough for the replay to catch the overtake. But Johan bringing himself back up into P3. He is currently riding 5/10 off of the pace of the front two, so not necessarily going to be able to close the gap to P2. Ryan Barrington-Smith and Sean Strydom really close, neck and neck with their pace. If anything happens and that gap does close down towards the end of the race, we might be in for quite a spicy battle there.
I think it's going to be a proper race to the line, and the two teammates are going to then take the gloves off and go into a fight. But Van der Merwe at this moment, if he can maintain his pace, he's in for some great points for the championship, and that's what you need to think of, the long game, especially in a race like this. Championship is all about getting to the end and not having to sacrifice a race. Even though there is a drop round, you still don't want to have one. You want to have as many points in the bag and just go and drop maybe the 10-pointer or the 12-pointer versus dropping something that's like 24 points. You've got to be so cautious about it. And at the moment, with a bit of clear air ahead of him and clear air behind him, he's going to have to just try and keep the maintenance up and work forward. I think lying in third place is going to help him out quite a bit, as I see a couple of guys getting very, very close to the wall, last corner of the circuit. But, well, this is where you want to be. In clear air, start hot lapping and moving forward. But take a look, Charles Walken is actually in the pits, down into 20th.
I've spotted him in the pits quite a while ago. I think he's been stationary there for quite some time. He's maybe decided, all right, he's had enough. He's now sitting and watching the race.
Grab yourself a nice drink and just go and watch all the action that's out on circuit. Everything that's spread out at the moment, but it can all change in the last 14 minutes of the race. As we've seen it many, many times before with Sim Race South Africa, it isn't over until you cross the checkered flag, put your car on the trailer, and walk away.
It's definitely one of those cases where it's not over until the fat lady sings. And knowing that the track temp is quite low, and I mean 24 degrees isn't that low, but raining on ACC can happen quite a bit at these colder temperatures. And I was toying around with the idea of being a little less harsh on your tires in the first few laps, driving 2/10 or 3/10 off of your race pace, just to eke out for 10 or so laps, 5 to 10 laps, eke out some extra life, and then start laying down the fast laps so that you're not caught out with tires starting to fall off half an hour after you've put them on.
That's it, and I see that we've got a battle for 15th and 16th as Charles has caught up to Hofart and doing everything he can to make it. So Gregory, part of the B team, now trying to run away from Charles, who is about a second away. No, Charles is looking a bit second-hand in that Porsche and isn't going quite as fast as he wants into the corner.
Yes, I just jumped back far enough. Oh no, Ronald Charles had a massive moment, and that's why he's going so slowly.
Over enthusiastic, and unfortunately And what's also fair enough, going and relinquishing
That's
the position, not putting up a fight,
That's why
knows
it
that he's
showed so
suffering.
close. They crossed the sector line very close to one another. So
So,
Gregory Hofart
fighting a
actually
car.
getting the overtake done there.
So Gregory going and saying thank you very much, but Charles not having a fun time and just giving space to everyone. I think that steering is as good as bent as 90 degrees.
Yeah,
He's just limping
We
it
can-
across at the moment.
and check that. Yeah,
Oh,
that
there we
steering
go.
is very, very bent.
So it's going to be a battle. That unfortunately, that's a very long drive back. You sit in the pits, wait for the repairs before you can get out. But at this point, hearing all the cars come past you, it's a little bit demoralizing. You just have to try and put it behind you and focus on the long game of get across the line, get that checkered flag. You don't know where you're going to end when the checkered flag comes down. Maybe some unfortunate luck to your competitors, or maybe that you manage to work your way through. The only way you're going to tell is by crossing the finish line at the end.
Right, Nick Hodgson currently almost 3 seconds, so closer to 2.5 seconds quicker than Sean Loureiro in P4. Showing he's got a bit of pace. I'm sure this overtake is going to be happening very, very soon.
Trying to line it up for turn one. Decides it's going to tuck it in nice and
Doesn't
close.
get the best apex there, though.
Oh, but he is in the tow through turn two, turn three. So this is going to help him heading towards a bus stop because he's going to get a monster tow. If he can just get close enough, like he's doing at the moment, slowly drawing him in. And I think he's going to be a little bit too far now. Just try and focus on getting the momentum through the bus stop, late on the brakes, really trying to eke it through. And gets a little bit of a slide, managing to keep it all together. And just seems like he lost it out on the exit of the bus stop, not able to get it all
Not
sorted.
quite long enough to get the overtake sorted there.
Gotta sit back, come back at it again. They now know they're running into the final moments, and Loureiro going out a little bit wide. That's allowed Hodgkin to get so close to him, pulling himself into the tow. Once again, trying to
Loureiro is
pressure on
under
that
a lot
inside.
of pressure, side by side, coming out of the tow there.
It is a drag race now, short straight. Who's going to have the top end to this? Who's got more drag on their car? Hard onto the brakes, nose down. And it does look like Hodgkin managed to get the advantage, trying to go and push Loureiro out a little bit wide. Loureiro not going and giving up, has going to have the advantage into the left-hander. Hodgkin having to really dig deep, try and look for the cutback, not able to do it. And this is where it's going to get tricky. You're going to play follow leader or you're going to get into the fight. Tries
Some
to go tuck
lovely
up on the
side-by-side racing from both drivers, though.
Absolutely incredible stuff. These two are racing like it's the last race
I
of the
think
championship.
Nick has got the run here now.
Guerrero trying to bait him a little bit off the line and just move slightly across, hard onto the brakes. And Hodgkin just giving himself a little bit of breathing room. Goes for the cutback. Loureiro off circuit, side by side into turn two. I think Hodgkin has now got the drive.
Nick definitely has made that overtake stick. I'm sure Sean is kicking himself for the small mistake there. Running that tight into turn one, you have to actually slow down quite a bit to make the corner and not wash out wide like that.
There was slight rub on the barrier as well on the exit of turn three, so I think it's all starting to come into effect. But Hodgkin not out of the woodwork just yet, losing out a bit of time through the bus stop. Well, it's actually called the boots. I do apologize. And lose out a little bit of time trying his best, but this is where Loureiro needs to try and refocus his efforts. And Hodgkin, who is part of the Grumpy Monkey team, I think is going to be a very happy monkey at the end of this.
I'm hopping back to another Grumpy Monkey battle. Christy Simon, also 2 seconds quicker. I'm lying. That's 1.5 seconds quicker than Donovan Denuen.
Donovan not getting a good entrance into the boot, and that's allowed Christy to get right up underneath them, trying everything he can.
Donovan
Looks
running
up on the
very, very
inside,
wide there, side by side.
off into the marbles, and Christy making a beautiful pass. I mean, if you want to talk about textbook on the brakes, that was it. Christy actually managing to just slide it through, and unfortunately Donovan actually getting caught onto the marbles and having to come off the throttle a little bit more just to stabilize the car, and that's allowed Christy to get a little bit more of a run. And he's just making small mistakes every so often. Pressure now getting to him, and he's so careful doing that because Porsches will rotate very, very quickly underneath him.
Yeah.
Absolutely some great racing from the Sim Race South Africa, and I've got to say, the Cup cars really putting on a great performance this evening, and they're really showing what they can do when they head to the Watkins Glen. And it always brings up the excitement to see such a full grid, and also a very difficult car, that
Yeah.
people would look away of going and driving, but everyone taking the challenge and saying, let's do it, let's make it happen, let's go and have a great race. And the Porsche Cup car really goes and shows the level of skill that the drivers do have. Sometimes you may not be lucky, but other times when you get it just right, there's nothing more satisfying.
7 minutes on the clock. Jeremy de Villiers last lap 53.4. Roxanne Bartels last lap 51.7. This is why. Okay, but now I have to like put back my thinking hat now and talk about the choice that Jeremy had made here. Had he pitted as late as he had for tires, that would have put him well behind Roxanne. But he is in that position now where he's decided not to take tires. He has decided to run the splash and dash, and he's just going backward. So I'm really, really interested to see how this pans out. Does he go for the defensive moves, or does he say, cool, I know that my tires aren't up to scratch, I'm struggling for pace, I'm just gonna kind of let things happen. Keep in mind, Byron Thompson is around about a second quicker than Jeremy de Villiers. There is 7 seconds between 8 seconds between Jeremy and Byron, so I'm not sure Byron's going to be able to make up that gap within the 5 minutes and 50 seconds that is left. Roxanne using all the track, looks like she's carrying quite a bit more speed, gets a good exit there. Jeremy slightly hesitant on the throttle there, running more defensively than I expected, but
he's not going to make it easy, but he's not going to give her a millimeter more. Roxanne tries and gets a little bit squeamish, having to back out mid-corner and upsets the balance of the car.
Move.
So Roxanne trying everything possible. De Villiers at this point just focusing on the charge. Ooh, slight collection of the wall, and that's not going to help. Light damage to the right rear for Roxanne. Just try and just get it all back. I think maybe pushing a little bit too hard at the moment.
Yeah.
Go and recoup, try and refocus and dial back in. Knows that quicker than likes of De Villiers, but if you carry on pushing this hard, how much life are you taking out of your own tires at this point? And is it worth the risk? Because you can land up in a world of hurt and fall down the field. De Villiers definitely slower into the corners, had to adjust his braking marker. I think he's moved it about 5 or 10 meters back just to slow the car down a little bit. So as we were talking about, those tire grain starting to come into play. He's going defensive. He's not making it easy, but he's not going and slamming the door closed.
Definitely.
That's the one trick.
I can report Sean has basically just started a lap there, and I see Roxanne getting her elbows out, trying while pushing herself past there.
De Villiers tried turning back in on Roxanne, and Roxanne saying, let me help readjust your wing mirror. Maybe it was too far out.
I mean, they both, while they had the contact, like rubbing is racing in my opinion. Jeremy turned in, and there was a car there that he probably wasn't expecting. So well done on Roxanne for getting that overtake done. Right, I'm just hopping back to Sean Stradom. He is on, by my count, I think his third last lap. He crosses the finish line now. There should be 2 laps left in this race.
Going to be an interesting challenge as he makes his way through. And Sean Stradom, I know also Ryan Barrington-Smith, they're going to be jumping into GT4s tomorrow as well. So really going and changing up the cars around and having to split the practice through the different sims, well, through the sim. But on an absolute form at the moment, and Stradom actually managing to eke out a 15-second gap over his teammate. Now that's no easy feat to do with Ryan Barrington-Smith, as Ryan's one of the quicker guys in South Africa, but Sean Stratham going and showing that he's no slouch as well.
I mean, Sean has won each of the previous 4 simCup races. Ryan has gotten top 3, I think, quite a bit as well. These gents have shown they've got immense pace. I'm a little disappointed that Charles had that mistake early on the race. Quite excited to see how the race would pan out between them.
Well, just taking a look, Groenewald and Leach down in 12th and 13th place are very close to one another. And also the likes of Sneeman is trying to keep very, very close to Thompson for 9th and 8th. So small battles starting to form in the last remaining minutes of the race. And Sneeman really on the hard charge, right up on the back of Thompson, trying to force a mistake. Thompson soaking up a bit of the pressure at the moment, wasn't able to get the nose tucked in as
sliding a lot though.
Needed. The Grumpy Monkey definitely on the back at the moment, so he has to try and figure out. Thompson needs to try and get the Grumpy Monkey off him and focus on the charge. Goes a little bit towards the middle of the circuit, closing off that inside line, decides to go for the outside line, opens the door. Christie going and trying to make use of it. And there we go.
It was a very, very sneaky move by Christie at the very last moment, showing his nose, getting Byron unsighted. Can he maintain the momentum going up the hill, though?
Looks like he's got a bit of momentum, but I think he's lost too much, and that Porsche just not going and biting as much as he wants. Charles Wilkin actually coming out of the pits gets a drive-through. So he hasn't moved until now, and now has scored a drive-through, and that tells me pit limiter off a little bit too early.
Maybe a little too early. Slightly unsighted. You said Renier Leach. I think Renier was overtaken by another car. That's why the gap has opened up a bit.
That was with Groenewald and Leach, and it seems like it's all open up, and Renier just trying. You can see counter steering the whole time with the car. Absolutely phenomenal work, but at this point your arms must be worn out, your legs must be shaking. I know that your left leg that's holding on to the brake is shaking, and well, 10
looks
10 points
more
on
like
that
he's
drift.
rally driving than he is circuit driving right now.
Well, you know, no ABS, no traction control. Why not just sling it around and go give the Pirellis back with next to nothing on it? They can use it as airplane tires.
Right. I'm on board with Sean Stratham right now. Sorry, just quickly hopping back. I do see Christie Simon. It's not enough time left. He does manage to get an overtake on Jeremy de Villiers. Jeremy really losing out because of his tire wear now. He's about 5 seconds off the pace. He's gonna be had by Byron Thompson as well, so he might be able to take a top 10 finish still.
It's nothing to sneeze about and taking a big gamble, but making his way through 2 corners to go. And Sean Stratham, with a flawless race at this point, is going to be smiling all the way to the bank, putting another win under his belt for the series. And well done to Sean Stratham of LNR.
Sean Stratham finishes. I see Charles Wilkin pulling into the pits to service drive-through. Ryan, well-deserved P2 there. It looked like he was very quick in the rain, but then ended up losing out a bit of time there. By pitting so late, and ultimately maybe not quite as quick as Sean on. Oh, actually, he was just as quick as Sean in the drive. Johan van der Merwe coming across the finish line for P3. Well-deserved drive from him. Had a little bit of a quiet race, all things considered, but keeping it cool and calm is the way to go. Nick Hodgson bringing it home in P4. Did well to drive him into that position. Sean,
it was an eventful race, but yep, seems like if he keep it all together for the last 2 corners, going to be taking home this place, and that's some great points for the championship.
Yeah. And
Lights
then
flashing in the plays, happy with that.
Finishing out the top 5, Roxanne Bartle. Double checking that somebody hasn't disconnected. Roxanne bringing home P5, Christie P6. Jeremy de Villiers manages to hold on to P7 right at the dead of it, with Byron Thompson finishing right behind, and Donovan Denoon coming and rounding out the final finishes there. Right, I am quickly gonna switch to our commentary view and see if there are people sticking around for interview. You see 3 people there, bringing them in. Sean, Ryan, and Johan, welcome. Johan, let's hear from you first. How was your race?
Hi guys, it was quite interesting. Got taken out second or third lap, trying to rejoin in a safe way, and then just trying to manage the tires in the wet weather. It was quite difficult, but yeah, ups to Sean and Ryan, they were uncatchable.
Just to quickly check, you started with wet tires?
No, I started with dry tires.
But I'm assuming you then went to pit for dry tires as well?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, no, you were running quite fast. So I saw some drivers not pitting for a new set of tires, and they were about 2 seconds off the pace. Ryan, you looked very, very racy there in the wet. You even managed to overtake Sean, but in the end, pitted a little bit too late and lost the position. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it was a good race from my point of view. I really didn't expect to be anywhere near the front tonight. I think I got helped out a lot when it's switched over to the race session and we found out we were racing in the wet, because I think nobody had practiced for it, so it equaled the playing fields and allowed me to run some good pace at the front. But yeah, like you said, I pitted a little bit too late. I wasn't too sure if it was going to be too early and the dry tires would be too cold, so I held out for a few more laps, and it cost me a good 6-7 seconds in the end.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunately one of the tricky decisions to make when it dries out, is when exactly to pit. Pit too early and you end up struggling to get the tires up to temperature. Pit too late and you end up losing a lot of time because you're still getting your tires up to temperature by then. And then lastly, Sean.
Yes. I can see you smiling there.
How was your race? How was your race?
Well, I said to me and Ryan, we got teammates for this, and I said to him in the chat, I'm thanking my lucky stars that he only practiced like 20-25 minutes before the race, because it was showing a really good pace, especially in the wet. Yeah, for me, and I believe Ryan also, we started on the wets. We just thought it's going to take too long for the dries to kick in. Kept it there. At one stage, I was calling out my left rear tire temperature to Ryan the whole time. I think at one stage it was like 128 degrees. And I said to him, no, I need to pit now. I'm scared to blow up or anything like that. But yeah, it was unfortunate. In the beginning, with Charles Wilkin, I saw he lost it, unfortunately. And then from there, just try to do tire management, especially with the new update or new physics. But yeah, I'm always happy to take a win. And congrats to Ryan and Johan. Especially Johan also showed really immense pace, even in practice before. So yeah.
I was looking forward to quite the spicy race at the top end there. I must also admit, I am very sorry. I said there was like a 4% chance of rain on camera, and then made the mistake of like saying I'm not even trying to do a rain dance. I'm looking forward to a nice and dry race, and then boom, we jumped to a wet start. So my apologies, I cursed everybody with this race, but I think it was still a spectacular start.
I'm getting very used to SRSA having wet races now, eh?
I mean,
between GT and simCup, yeah.
It's not that we're trying to have wet races. I think this was an actual real attempt at having very low chances, but ACC can have 20 sessions and then suddenly it's a super wet session. Okay.
That's correct.
Any last thoughts from you, gentlemen?
No, not at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but thank you so much. We're moving back to, is it some GT next week? And we are getting confused with where my windows are. Snetterton. So we're back in the good old UK. You gentlemen ready for that?
Oh, I need to get some practice in. I've got a championship on the line, yeah. So I've got to do some practice now.
I'm gonna have to get ready. I think it's gonna be a good one. Yeah. So some GT is happening next, followed by some GP, followed by another round of simCup, and our next race for simCup is gonna be on Brands Hatch. Following a little bit of a theme here with the UK tracks. I must say, I think I'm curious to see Brands Hatch being one of those like easy to learn, difficult to master tracks. What type of racing we're going to see with the simCup cars. But I'm going to thank you gentlemen all for joining, especially Stephen Koenig. It wasn't as lonely in the booth as it used to be, and I think he had some great insight. But yeah, thanks so much gents for joining, and thanks so much for racing and giving us this entertainment.
A pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us.
Appreciate
It's
it.
very good.
Thank you very much for you guys. Absolutely well done with the racing. It's always phenomenal to see you guys out on circuit. And a big shout out to the SimRace South Africa team for all the hard work. First time ever being on air with you guys, Sus. It's the first time I've ever got to be on air with you. So thank you very much for dealing with me. And to many more. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all goes with the Sim GT, also with the Sim GP. I love the single seaters, and I know Ryan's going to be contacting and just trying to bring in his inner grandfather who raced many years ago with no grip, and going to be utilizing that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and just to then close out, there is still 2 rounds for all of the series left in this season. You can still come and join us. I think some GP might be a little bit at capacity, but there is likely an opportunity in GT and simCup for you to come and join and race and just have some fun. So if you're keen, head on over to www.simracesa.co.za. You can find the link to the Discord details and get onboarded and signed up over there. But yeah, hopefully seeing everybody in 3 weeks time, and looking forward to another good one. I'm gonna call it at that and say have a good one, everybody.
Good luck.